Okay, a very good afternoon to all of you. Respected guests, I am Vinay Pandey, attending this session from Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. I feel myself very privileged to have such a uniquely constituted panel of experts and enthusiasts participating in this esteemed forum organized by Jaina International Foundation, a Section 8 not-for-profit company registered with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. At this Sunday evening, on a curtain raising note, I welcome you all and feel very grateful to you all for having spared your precious time despite various other personal or professional commitments of yours. Well, now coming to the purpose of this event and its attempted takeaways. Climate change is happening now, and it is the most serious threat to life on our planet. Fortunately, there are plenty of solutions to the climate change, and the good news is that they are all well understood by all of us. Core to all climate change solutions is reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which must get to zero as soon as possible. Around the world, millions of us are taking steps to defend our climate. The main ways to stop climate change could be keep fossil fuels in the ground, invest in renewable energy, switch to sustainable transport system, keep our keep our homes naturally cozy, improve farming and encourage vegan diets, restore nature and absorb more carbon, reduce consumption and reduce plastic, of course. Now it's a question of making them all happen, and that is a big question indeed. Since our topic of discussion today is energy, we shall now focus on the same directly and deeply. Let's come to the term energy first. Energy is a valuable resource that can be used to power different industries. In a world where manufacturing plays a vital role in the growth of a country's economy, it's important to have sustainable energy sources. Energy gives a system the ability to perform work, and without it, many industries cannot even function. And then the green energy. Green energy is the energy that can be harnessed without harming the environment in a major way. It is environment friendly and powers different systems while releasing very little or no toxic substances into the atmosphere. It can be renewable energy since it is not exhausted at the source. It is sustainable energy that can be used by generations to come. It is referred to as clean energy due to the lack of negative impacts on the environment. It is one of the alternative energy sources that has been given a special focus by the governments and different international organizations in a bid to keep the planet clean. Green energy is also sometimes referred to as the energy obtained from the processing of waste materials in an attempt to make the environment cleaner. Such materials pollute the environment by increasing the amount of waste matter and toxic substances on the surface of the earth. Most of the waste materials are used to produce biogas as a form of green energy. By processing the waste matter and using them to provide energy, the environment is made cleaner. Many countries and leading environmental organizations have identified waste management as a significant step towards cleaning the world and having sustainable energy at the same time. The six most common forms of energy could be solar power, wind power, hydropower, geothermal energy, biomass, and biofuels. Let's have a precise journey through the four different types of energy we are referring to. We have seen green energy already. Coming to sustainable energy. Sustainable energy is the energy that that renews itself automatically. In this way, it can remain a viable energy source across many generations. Wind and solar energy are examples of sustainable energy. And then clean energy, which is the topic of the day for us. Clean energy is energy that emits negligible amounts of pollution in the form of carbon dioxide, radiation, or chemical contaminants. Zero carbon energy sources are forms of clean energy. The emissions from clean energy should have minimum or no impact on the surrounding environment. Wind and solar energy are once again examples of clean energy because their production emits no pollution into the environment. Followed by renewable energy. Renewable energy is theoretically inexhaustible. However, in practice, it consumes such minimal amounts of resources that it will be viable as an energy source ever over the long term. Ethanol is a renewable energy source because it comes from sugarcane or corn, and we can grow more of those crops to replenish our stores. At their current level of uses, logs and wood chips could also be considered renewable energy. Tree regrowth can replace the wood burnt for the fuel, but this situation could easily change though. Increased deforestation and widespread wood burning could make wood fuel unsustainable in short order. Energies such as biodiesels, biomass, and even municipal waste are also forms of renewable energy because we can continue generating more of them. Now that we have discussed different types of energy, let's recap the four sections, that is green, sustainable, clean, and renewable energy. Green energy has quite a small negative impact on the Earth's atmosphere and environment. If there is one umbrella term that can encompass all four of the types of energy we have seen so far, then green energy is it. The differences between clean and green energy are differences of degree. Clean energy takes the idea of green energy a step further. It makes almost no negative impact on the Earth's atmosphere and environment. The difference between green and renewable energy involves the possibility of replenishment. Renewable energy comes from sources that the Earth can naturally replenish, such as crops and biomatter. Sustainable energy comes from sources that don't need to be replenished because they can never be depleted, such as sunlight and wind energy. As you can see, renewable and sustainable energy are more or less a subset of clean energy. Wind and solar power are examples of sustainable energy because they cannot be depleted. But there are also examples of clean energy because they do not pollute the atmosphere or damage the environment. So choosing an energy source becomes quite handy. Generally speaking, clean, sustainable energy sources represent the most significant strides forward in terms of preserving our planet's resources and protecting ourselves from further climate change. But at the moment, green and renewable sources still make valuable contributions, and they may be much more practical to implement. We are not yet ready to power all our homes, businesses, hospitals, factories, and so on with wind or solar energy. But using renewable energy to support the conventional energy sources represents a useful step forward. And the future will likely bring many more advances in the field of clean green energy. So now that we have begun thinking green, it certainly will take us on a trajectory to act green. And to add to that, we have us today not one, but two distinguished panelists who are expert on the topic, whom we shall listen to and enrich ourselves. I'm sure both of our speakers will touch upon the relevant and vulnerable points pertaining to the climate change, green energy, clean energy, and its impact on our society at large. Now, to start with, we shall first have the Jaina Vision video played here.
Whenever you can move ahead, no worries. ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा है, आप छोड़
ऑडियो
दीजिए।
नहीं आ रहा?
नहीं, इसलिए छोड़ दीजिए, ड्रॉप इट, नो वरीज।
अच्छा अच्छा।
You can proceed with the
Okay,
program.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Well, now is the time to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Pragyan Chakravarti. Dr. Pragyan Chakravarti received his Bachelor in Electronics Engineering from Nagpur University, MTech in RF and Microwave Engineering from IIT Kharagpur, and completed his PhD in Electronics and Communication Engineering from NIT Durgapur. He began his professional career as a lecturer in BIT, Durg, Chhattisgarh, in the year 2001. Ever since then, he has gathered a rich experience in academics, administration, and research across several engineering colleges of India. He is the founding director of an internationally collaborated research institute named Click for Applied Research in Electronic Technology, that is CRET. His research interests include antenna array pattern synthesis and optimization, design of passive and active microwave circuits over PCB technologies, etc. Dr. Chakraborty has also a keen interest in improving pedagogical techniques in designing organizational structure for educational institutes and bringing innovative procedures in the educational management. He is a senior member of IEEE, fellow of IET, and fellow of IEI, with several publications in international journals and conferences, which include top journals like IEEE, Transactions and Antenna on Antenna and Propagation, IEEE Antenna Wireless Propagation Letters, IEEE Signal Processing Magazine, and so on. He serves as reviewer in many prestigious journals like IEEE Antennas and Wireless Propagation Letters, Applied Soft Computing, International Journal of Electronics, IET, Microwave and Antenna Propagation, to name a few. His research papers, being fundamental in nature, have also got citations in the world's largest online encyclopedia, that is Wikipedia. So over to Dr. Pragyan Chakravarti for the keynote address for the day. Dr. Pragyan Chakravarti, please.
Thank you, Professor Pandey, for introducing me. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In this event, yet another event, we would talk about clean energy and how we do it the way through solar and the geothermal energies. Before actually talking about the event today, I would like to introduce our very venerated Professor V.K. Pandey. Now, although he doesn't require any introduction, his very presence itself speaks a lot. However, I'll read out a snippet from his bio so that people can know about him a little. Professor V.K. Pandey is retired from Indian Air Force way back in the year 2000. Having had a distinguished and commended term with Indian Air Force and equally vibrant civil career, he commands a very colossal practical experience of over 4 decades, ranging from engineering, academics, and industrial to communication, relations, and management. As an apt all-rounder, he has been seconded by none in the areas of responsibilities he shares during his diversified tenures of services. He has very sound command over the languages he knows. His passions also include writing in general and expressing his thoughts in the form of poetry. In particular, the traits of dedication, punctuality, and sincerity add to his persona to render it reliable and dependable for us. And we are very proud to be associated with Professor Pandey. Having introduced him, thank you, sir. Having introduced him, I would like to go ahead with this topic of presentations. Today, we will have two speakers presenting on solar energy and geothermal energy as a source of clean energy. Now, we can think about today in this century that the requirement of clean energy, the requirement of green energy has come up almost all of a sudden. Now, why has this come up all of a sudden in this century? We almost all are talking about green energy, the ways we can make it clean. Is it really not clean? Now, the problem is it really not clean? And if it is not clean, what cleanliness are we talking about? What will a clean energy will bring to us? What is the basic problem? Now, as Professor Pandey was also talking about this particular problem, it's about the global warming. Now, when we say global warming, what harm can it do to us? That is one of the most prominent questions that we need to answer today. Now, in the latest climate summit that was organized by the global global giants area, this focuses on climate change and global warming. And according to an estimate, we know that by, say, the next 80 years, almost 200 million people, that's 20 crore people, will lose their homes, their lands to the rising sea levels. And that rising sea levels is due to what we call as the greenhouse effect from the green, and that is because of the greenhouse gases, which trap the solar energy and which helps in melting the polar ice and eventually giving rise to the sea levels. This is something which is known to us. But what is alarming is that this global warming is taking place at a rate much faster than we had ever anticipated. And as per the estimate that I talked about, it is going to ruin almost 200 million lives in the next 80 years. The countries like, say, Seychelles or Maldives or maybe Mauritius, they will be all drowned and their existence will be lost. And this is the reason it is one of the prime purposes of our humanity is to save ourselves. And how do we save ourselves from this problem? The problem is the greenhouse gas. Now, there are several greenhouse gases, out of which carbon dioxide takes the 80% chunk. Now, this 80% chunk of carbon dioxide is generated by whom? This is the question. Now, who creates this? If you look at our energy requirements today, in India, particular, it is like 80% energy comes from the fossil fuels. Now, the burning of these fossil fuels actually create most of the greenhouse gases, and in particular, the carbon dioxide. So we also call it the increase in carbon footprint. The increase in these greenhouse gases would certainly increase global warming and raise the sea levels, as we had talked about. Now the question is, how do we get rid of this 80% usage of fuels for our energy requirements? If we look at the energy requirement, it goes into the electricity part. So we use say coal or the fossil fuels in generating electricity, and we use it for firing blast furnaces and steel plants, for example. We use them in our cars. So that you see that there's a myriad of usage which is done of which caters to our energy requirements in form of biofuels, in form of fossil fuels. Now, certainly, we need to cut down on that, and we can imagine that since the requirement of electricity has gone up in our daily requirements. Now, we can say that almost 50% of this fossil fuel energy goes into the generation of electricity, because the electricity itself is a kind of versatile energy that we get through these burning of biofuels. Now here, what we can do is that we can think of alternative sources of energy, such as solar energy, which one of our speakers will take up, and another, and there are several, like solar energy, the wind energy, and such non-conventional sources like the geothermal energy. So one of the topics of today's discussion will be the solar energy, and the second would be the geothermal energy. Now let us talk about a little about this the solar energy first. Now in our preceding event, we had a question which came up. That is that to harvest the solar energy, we need solar panels to be put on lands. Now, is it feasible to have large solar energy sources, in particular when it requires a lot of space to be for the solar panels to be put up? Now here, I would like to remind all of us that the solar panels are perhaps one of the most portable plants that we can ever think of. You need lands for farming. You need land to establish maybe a steel plant or a power plant. But ultimately, what you require for the solar panels is not piece of land, but anything over which you can put on, and anything anywhere where you have the access to light. For example, you can put your solar panels right on the top of your houses, on your terraces, on your roofs, and almost everywhere. You can turn your buildings into solar panels themselves. Having said that, we can understand that solar panels are such an answer to our energy requirements, non-conventional energy requirements, clean energy requirements, such an answer that it can actually cater, it can actually be a very, very practical solutions for this. And then generation of electricity through geothermal sources is something which one can think about when one talks about geothermal energy. Now, as we can understand, conventionally, the geothermal energy mostly comes from the springs, hot springs. Now, these hot springs can drive a thermal power plant, and this is not from burning fuels. So usually this is what geothermal would mean, generating electricity from the geothermal power plants. Unfortunately, in a country like India, we are not as hot as Chile, Well, no puns intended. So this, what it means is that we do not have sources of hot springs to generate electricity. However, when we talk about geothermal, the geothermal by itself is actually, uh, technically, it would mean that anything which uses the thermal energy trapped in our earth, or in the biosphere of the earth as a whole. So anything which, any thermal energy source which is underground, maybe in form of hot springs, or the solar energy which is trapped by greenhouses, can also be categorized energy. The solar thermal energy trapped by the greenhouses can be called as geothermal energy. So we do have usage of geothermal energy for not just generating electricity, but using them directly for serving certain other purposes, to solve our other energy requirements. Maybe just like say the solar energy, the solar heat energy can be used for solar cooking. Similarly, the geothermal energy can also be used for a variety of other purposes. And our second speaker, who would speak about geothermal, would also focus on a very interesting thing. That is, can we harvest this solar heat energy in the summers, keep it in maybe an enclosed adiabatic chamber, and finally use it in the winters when heat energy is required. So harvest the heat energy during summers, use it in winters. Perhaps this is something which our second speaker would focus into. Without wasting much time in my speech, I would like to hand over the session to Professor Pandey. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to give the keynote. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pragyan Chakravarti. Thank you so much for that overall insight of the complete picture of the event that we are going to have today. I'm sure this session is bound to be a memorable one, since we have very distinguished speakers on the subject, and the way the event is going to unfold is going to be very interesting and enriching for all of us here. Now, I would like to introduce our two speakers and the moderator, session moderator of the day. The three are the two speakers we have, Mr. Yogesh Singh and Mr. Arijit Ghosh, and the session moderator, Mr. Manish Agarwal. So I will start with the introduction of Mr. Yogesh Singh first. Mr. Yogesh Singh has over 13 years of experience in the renewable energy sector, scientist with over 11 years experience in testing, training, and consultancy, more than 550 megawatt, that is 220 megawatt for rooftop, and somebody is sharing the screen, I think, and 330 megawatt ground mounted in the field of solar photovoltaic technology, with over 77 national and international trainings conducted in India. He has 10 years of experience in R&D in the field of solar energy, particularly in module reliability testing, design, operation, and maintenance of solar power plant on and off grid. He has initiated various research and development activities. Mr. Yogesh has expertise in system design and performance measurements in rooftop, ground-mounted, and solar water pumping. He has worked in various international collaborative projects with NREL USA, AIST Japan, Indo-UK STAPP, and the Solar Energy Research Institute for India and United States, that is SERIIUS, for the analysis of long-term performance behavior of different technology-based PV modules. He has been instrumental in execution of 500 kWp multi-technology power plant at NIEC, that is National Institute of Solar Energy. He is coordinating various national and international training programs at NIAC. He has conducted more than 25 trainings as lead program director and lead master trainer of solar system design software workshop at NIAC. Currently, Mr. Yogesh is pursuing his doctoral studies in solar energy. We are so lucky to have you here, Mr. Yogesh. Now I shall come to the introduction of our second speaker, Mr. Arijit Ghosh. Is he online? Not so far. He will be joining us. He will be joining. I must introduce, shall I wait for him to come online, sir?
Yeah, I think Yogesh, Manish bhai, आपको भी Arijit will be available between 5 to 5:45. But Yogesh is available with us. So I think it is already 4:46.
I think
So
I will introduce Manish sir first, and then go on with
you
Yogesh.
can do both. You can do both the introduction,
Ah,
and Yogesh can just give a brief of
yes.
5-10 minutes,
Yes.
and then Arijit can take over, because Yogesh after Arijit can do it. Is it okay,
Yes.
Manish bhai?
You are
You're
muted, sir.
muted. You're muted.
Sorry, if the Arijit Bhai is coming about 5:40, then what I said.
No.
Five.
He is coming at 5 o'clock and he will exit at 5:40.
Okay, then we can proceed with the introduction, and my initial questions will be directed towards Yogesh.
And Yogesh can take it.
So
तो
Arijit
वो खाली आप लोग
अरिजीत का इंस्ट्रक्शन भी बाद में ही रखते हैं फिर ना?
हाँ, उनको आने के बाद आप उनको इंट्रोड्यूस कर दीजिएगा. अभी आप कंटिन्यू करिए.
Yes, I will go on with the moderator. Mr. Manish Agrawal has over 24 years of work experience in India at leadership positions in global multinational organizations like Citibank, Dell, and Deloitte. He, in his last corporate role, was the CEO of Ujas Energy, which is in the area of renewable energy. Earlier, he was vice president of a strategy, research, and innovation group at Deloitte, USA, where he oversaw a team of 300 people providing business research, knowledge management, and thought leadership service to Deloitte. Mr. Manish is a BTech from IIT Kanpur, class of 1992, and a postgraduate from IIM Ahmedabad, class of 1995. He has been a speaker at various industry forums and has been quoted in leading business media like Economic Times, Reuters, Yahoo, Business Standard, Financial Times, etc. Mr. Manish is interested in spirituality and has been practicing heartfulness for last 27 years. He has also been conducting meditation sessions at leading corporate offices, business schools, and voluntary organizations. He has been a visiting faculty at SP Jain Institute of Management at Singapore and Dubai, wherein he took courses in decision making and leadership. He was also on the corporate advisory board of IIM Udaipur. Currently, Mr. Manish is based at Hyderabad and operates as an independent financial advisor, helping people with their financial investments and insurance. We welcome you, Mr. Manish Agrawal, and without wasting any more time, I shall request the session moderator, Mr. Manish Agrawal, to go on with the session. Over to Mr. Manish.
Thank you, Vinay, for this introduction. So my first question is to Yogesh. He's into the area of solar energy, and solar energy is touted as one of the very important elements of the renewable energy mix, which will hopefully help us transition from a position where we are currently uh, currently we are so carbon positive to maybe a carbon neutral society.
Yeah.
So I wanted to understand your thoughts on how carbon neutral is the, and one of the solutions provided or suggested is that with electric cars and the entire the domestic transportation system moving towards electricity, then the fossil fuel consumption will come down, and the electricity required for that will be produced by solar. So what I understand, and please, this is where we require your comments, is that the manufacturing of solar cells and panels and solar modules is a very carbon intensive process, is the understanding. We could be wrong. Second is when we move towards transportation, where we have electric cars, there's a certain process in manufacturing lithium-ion batteries and storage of solar. Cheaper solutions have not yet been found. We just wanted to get your perspective on some of the developments in this area, and also on what is the current carbon footprint of this entire model of using solar panels with transportation system relying on solar electricity.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much, Vinay sir and Pragyan sir, and thank you very much to Manish Agrawal sir to raising this question. And I'm very much thankful to the Jaina Award who's organized this wonderful workshop. Sir, as you already know, India has doing a very commendable work in renewable energy. So if you see the entire electricity generation, the total total electricity generation in India is around 394 gigawatt if you combine all the technology. But if you see this figure in 2010, so total entire electricity generation is only the 290 gigawatt. So the India has come in a very big role in renewable energy. And if you see the entire electricity consumption, the India has come in a very big role, because the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has caretaking of renewable energy activity. India has given the target around 175 gigawatt of 2022, and I am happy to say the things is that around 150 gigawatt of electricity generation has already achieved by the India. And our new target we have doing the next 2030 is a 500 gigawatt of total electricity generation with the renewable energy source. So the future of renewable energy, and especially in the solar energy, is a very, very bright. And as per the talking about the carbon footprint kind of thing, so definitely if you are installing the solar power plant, the reliability and the performance of solar module is coming around 25 years. So only the carbon footprint kind of things, if you are using to this type of energy sources, because this energy source is a free of cost. This all the energy sources is depend to the sun. And the India is a very good climatic condition where the sun is available around 300 to 320 days. And we have the ample amount of the energy. With the help of that, we can generate the maximum amount of solar enhance. So for the carbon footprint kind of things, we are in a very right approach, and government has also doing a very good initiative for this kind of thing. I'm also sharing the one thing, the India has done the COP21 conference in Paris. So India has established the International Solar Alliance, where we have a go to around 121 country alliance in a single platform. And from that contribution, the total temperature we will minimize around 2030 is 1.5 degrees centigrade, and India has working in the same target. So this is a point from my side. Thank you very much. You are muted, sir. You are muted, sir.
Sorry. So thanks, Yogesh, for some of those numbers, and also for some perspective on the overall dynamics of solar energy and how it will impact the environment. Any inputs on how carbon intensive is the lithium-ion production by the production of lithium-ion batteries is?
Sir, India is a very new in the EV industry, and now the next upcoming the technology is the hydrogen green energy. So the people, or also the government is also initiating the hydrogen green energy. So maybe in upcoming 1 or 2 years, you can see that we did not depend on the lithium ion, the government will be directly go to the hydrogen energy, because the future is the hydrogen energy. And you can see that in upcoming 2 to 3 years, lot of hydrogen vehicles will become in a market, because if you see the calorific value of the hydrogen is very, very high. If you're using to 1 kg of hydrogen, so your vehicle will be travel around 300 to 400 kilometer kind of thing. So that kind of initiative has done by the India. But your question is right. If you're talking about the lithium ion battery kind of thing, the wastage, the recycling, so India is new for this thing, and there is no recycling planning in India. And when you are manufacturing such kind of things, so you have a required to the huge amount, and also they will be very polluted to the environment. So that's why the government has go to the hydrogen green energy, because hydrogen green energy is the alternative solution for the transportation and other requirements. But only the challenge of hydrogen is the storage, because the storage condition is very hard, because if the hydrogen is directly come to the yeah, I think my session was cut. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. We lost you for about 20 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The session will be lost from my side. Okay, so I also tell you that things the government has go to the green hydrogen kind of things, and definitely the EV is not the future for India, because there's a lot of challenge in EV, and you've also seen a lot of cases in the EV in upcoming time, because India has no proper knowledge, and the quality concern is not to at per the mark. So a lot of the casualty will be happening in the last couple of years. So that's why the government has go to the green hydrogen initiative as compared to the EV vehicle.
So should the audience therefore understand that chances are that we might bypass electric vehicles, that is as a manufacturing, or as a I mean, if we consider electric vehicles as a revolution in green energy, then chances are that we will bypass that electric vehicle revolution and straight away go to hydrogen. Is that where what you foresee will happen in the Indian market?
Definitely, sir, because if you see the EV, the government is parallelly also go to the hydrogen kind of thing. So in my observation is that EV is only sustained to 2 to 3 years, but after the 2 to 3 years, the hydrogen will be the overcome to the EV industry. So if you are working to the right technology at the time, so in my thought, if you go to the hydrogen, so it will be the future energy for the India for the transportation side.
So that's a very interesting thought, because we don't hear much about hydrogen. I have seen some articles in the press around hydrogen as a fuel, and some funds earmarked by the government for hydrogen-based fuel research. Could you please throw some more light on at what stage we are with respect to creating hydrogen as a fuel for transportation?
So generally, the hydrogen has worked in the electrolysis process, and this electrolysis process we have go to the solar module. So solar is already come to that part also. With the help of solar energy, we will go to the electrolysis with the help of the different type of component like the KOH type of solution. And when you do the KOH is the electrolysis, so you can get the oxygen and hydrogen in the two different ways. So there is a two benefit is there. You can, if you produce the hydrogen energy, so you can produce the hydrogen plus oxygen as well as. So the oxygen will be the transport to the medical purpose, and the hydrogen will be utilized for the vehicles. So as per the concern from India, so IOCL has doing a great job in a hydrogen energy. The Reliance has coming in a very great initiative in a hydrogen energy. The Reliance has investing more than 36,000 crore rupees in a green hydrogen, and they will be coming in a very big role in India. Apart from that, L&T, Adani, and Tata Power is also working in a hydrogen energy in India.
So which therefore means that instead of putting petrols in our cars, we will be putting hydrogen fuel in our cars, right?
Yes, sir, definitely.
And by when do you, or what is the current estimate of when we will start getting cars which will be driven by hydrogen in India?
Pardon?
So when do you estimate, based on current situation, that when will hydrogen fuel based cars or transport vehicles be first available in India for use by users?
Already, India, if you're talking about the NICE, so NICE has also installed a 100 kilowatt of electrolysis process of hydrogen, and the Mahindra has already developed the car. So I'm working with NICE, so we have also do the research working there. So if you're using the 1 kg of hydrogen, so the vehicle will be going around 180 kilometers. So the vehicle is already available in India. And if you're talking about the Denmark and Germany, so they have traveling the hydrogen buses, and hydrogen train is also available in the market.
So are there actual hydrogen train based trains running in India?
Pardon?
Are there actual hydrogen trains running in India as of now?
No train is running in India. I just talked about the Denmark and Germany. They are working in hydrogen, and they have already available the hydrogen train with them actually.
Okay. So in some other part of the world that is definitely started. So chances are that we'll get this in India soon.
Yes, sir. Because hydrogen energy is a different part. The hydrogen is come to the green hydrogen, the gray hydrogen, and the pink hydrogen. So for the transportation purpose and the green, the green energy perspective, the government will be go to the green hydrogen perspectives there actually.
Okay. So so thanks a lot, Yogesh bhai, and we'll come back to you once again. I think.
Yes, Mr. Arijit Ghosh has already joined us. We welcome him all
to the program, and for the benefit of all our viewers, I'll request Vinay bhai to introduce him to the group.
Yes, of course. So I will just introduce our second guest, Mr. Arijit Ghosh. Mr. Arijit Ghosh is the Managing Director, SAP Automations, a firm dealing with the so-called net zero equation, that is low energy consumption, low carbon emission, low refrigerant uses. He has acquired specialized trainings in this field from Spain, Czech Republic, and Italy. An MBA class of 1992, Mr. Ghosh has been rendering his vast expertise and valued services to many other countries like Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Italy, Spain, and Czech Republic, in addition to our own land for last over 29 years. Some of his specializations are mechanical room, control parameters and integration with eManager, energy balance, system architecture and design of CIB automation systems, ULEBs, that is ultra low energy buildings design in Indian climate and control automation for ULEBs. SAP Automation is the industry partner for CSIR CBRI Roorkee for low energy buildings with geothermal and aerothermal energies for 5 years, next 5 years, that is 2020 to 2025. Mr. Ghosh has attended many training programs and workshops and has also been the resource person and keynote speakers at the conferences at national and international levels. We are so fortunate to have you here, sir. Over to Mr. Manish Agrawal for interacting with Mr. Arijit Ghosh, sir.
So Mr. Arijit, first question to you is, for the benefit of our audience, could you just let us know at a very basic principle level, how does geothermal energy work, and maybe some idea about some major projects which run, or major sources of energy in India where geothermal is the primary output provider?
Well, good evening, everybody. I think you can hear me. Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but not very clearly.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, but I think at this point it's not very, very clear.
No?
Can you repeat?
I'm saying, can you hear me since I'm speaking for the first time?
Audio is slightly low, sir, low in volume.
Anyway, I'll try to talk and I mean, I have no more anything to adjust. I've adjusted everything, so this is what I have at the moment. So I'll just explain to you what is geothermal. If you Google, you will see geothermal as a search word in Google, which throws up a hell lot of things, out of which one will be geothermal power. And this is where the first thing we must understand, that we are not actually looking at power, we are looking at direct heat. So this is renewable heat energy. So we talk about solar as electricity, which is renewable electricity, and geothermal is actually renewable heat, renewable thermal energy. So in a building, if you convert 50% of your energy, electrical energy, into a thermal energy for heating or cooling or hot water or whatever, this is the direct application of energy stored in the ground for doing the same thing. So basically, if we are looking at geothermal for buildings, that's the space where I operate. I do not operate on power. I do not operate on anything else except the space conditioning of buildings, which means I use another form of HVAC, which is basically a system of exchange between the building and the soil. Why? Because the heat required inside the building for cooling or heating is stored in the ground. Because it's stored in the ground, all we have to do as human beings is find out a technology to exchange the temperature, bring it up to the building, and send it back for the next cycle. Why this helps? Because this does not take any kind of electricity to convert the electrical energy to thermal energy. Therefore, we do not need any grid connectivity to that extent to convert this quantum of energy. So, therefore, we need to understand that there are some energy required in a building, which is for, say, electrical lights or for appliances. And there is another energy that is converting that electrical energy into thermal energy. Say, for example, if we look at things like air conditioning, we need to feed it with an electrical energy. It doesn't matter how we produce at this stage. We can do it by solar, we can do it by coal, we can do it by anything. But we must understand that whatever energy that we consume, be it electrical, be it thermal, we must be able to decarbonize this, because this is what creates problem for the environment, and therefore for things like global warming, things like climate change, etc. So geothermal is one of the largest single point intervention that can actually handle climate change. There is no other single thing that can handle so much. Why? Because in countries like ours, or in countries like, say, Europe, you'll see, or in America, there are situations where it is either very cold or very hot. So in India, if we look at most of India, we have either very high cooling needs, or some places like the northern areas where we have very high heating needs, which means we require a lot of energy to do that. Now, how do we do that? In any place where we need to convert it into cooling or we need to convert it into heating, what we require is a straightforward convert mechanism to do it. Now the question is, if we had a ready-made energy source that was just beneath our feet, why we needed to convert it? We don't need to convert it. Now the question is, what is the heat required? In a condition called comfort parameter, in summer we need 23 degrees in our international condition where more or less every country, and in the winters we need something like 20 degrees centigrade. Now, if we look at the air and say, for example, if we look at Western India or Rajasthan or Delhi or composite and hot climates, you will see that the temperature goes up to even 50 degrees centigrade. So which means we have to reject the temperatures from inside the building into 50 degrees and therefore exchange and bring it back to 23. So in physics, this is called delta T, the difference between the two temperatures, and this is where the third law of thermodynamics works, from a higher to lower. So which means our 50 degrees must be converted to 23. Now what happens if we have something which is very, very easily available at, say, for example, 18 degrees centigrade, or some meters down from our building? Geothermal uses the concept of stable temperature. While the first 10 to 20 meters of the soil has a temperature that is more or less directly proportional to the outdoor ambient. So which means it's variable, which means when it is hot, the soil is hot, when it is cold, the soil is cold. Now what we need to do, we need to find out a space where the temperature is very favorable to our desired temperature, which is 20 and 23, winter and summer. So what does this geothermal business do? It finds out a very simple formula to bring that temperature from the ground into the space, move it inside the space, and then goes back again to the soil to reject the heat that's captured from the heat. So what does it principally do? It has a thermal carrier, which can be just a water, or even just a carrier with antifreeze. So this does not have any refrigerant. There is no harmful objects inside this. And this carrier goes down deep inside the earth, which is say about 100 meters or 120 meters or 130 meters or whatever, based on the ability of the soil to change the temperature. What it does is it exchanges the temperature, which is the collection of the heat from inside the building, rejects it into the soil, and brings the stable temperature from the soil, which is very close to the desired temperature, into the building. And then we have a very, very small cycle for refrigeration, which has to do very little work as the requirement between the two temperatures are very small. It does very little work, and therefore it either cools or heats according to the climate. What geothermal is basically also can be used for power, which is a very different concept altogether, because it goes much deeper and collects the heat from the magma, which is just before the lava, and brings that heat and moves a turbine and generates electricity. Countries like Iceland and Canada, they produce a lot of geothermal power, and even Kenya, Ethiopia, all these countries have tremendous amount of geothermal power. But that requires a massive resource, which means at that temperature, you need to have that temperature in gaseous form, which you have to bring it up in steam and then run a turbine. But what we are doing, we are not bothered about the temperature at all. Why? Because if we do in Chennai, if we do in Northeast, if we do in Ladakh, or we do in Gujarat, there is a stable temperature. It could be 18 degrees, it could be 20 degrees, it could be 15 degrees, or whatever. But the whole point is about being stable. So when the temperature is stable, what it does, it comes in a cycle with a simple engineering cycle, and that temperature is brought up to the place where it is required, gone through a small refrigeration cycle, and generated. This saves a huge amount of energy, because if you are exchanging at say 50 degrees of a Rajasthan versus a 18 degrees of a Arunachal or a say Chennai under the soil, that 18 degrees is actually free energy for you. So we say geothermal is a free underground energy. The form is different. It is not in the form of electricity. It is in the form of thermal power, thermal energy. So the question is that why we have to look at all the solutions from electricity point of view. We don't need, because our air conditioner's final delivery or a heating mechanism's final delivery is actually thermal energy. So we are not bothered with how much, why the electricity needs to be formed. Now, this gives a massive amount of advantage for the technology. Why? Because it requires very little power to run and convert the quantum of heat. So therefore, a little bit of solar, especially if the building has a VAU of say 9 to 6, or an office building, which say closes down at 5:30 or 6, which means almost throughout the entire day, at least 300 days a year or 300 plus days a year with a little solar, you can hybridize it to almost complete. So because you have the ability to convert huge amount of thermal energy because of this technology, the ability to convert it into a net zero or a off grid actually helps us in climate change, because this is where there is no way you can have a carbon in the system, because geothermal doesn't have a carbon, and the solar, if you don't supply it back to the coal grid, it does not have any kind of carbon. Yes, there is a very little carbon in the transmission, in the protection circuits, but that is very, very negligible, which means as a country where we have about 53% of the grid, which is straight away coal or carbon, 70% of the grid is coal, and 70% or 80% of the coal is carbon. So we are talking about say close to 50-60% of the grid as straight away carbon. Why we need this carbon? It's only a way of looking at things. Why? Because nobody told us that we must make it in this fashion. Why make the grid bigger and bigger? Theoretically, if you look at common sense approach to world, you'll see that the whole world is going decentralized, which means your, say, Mr. Manish Agarwal's house in India doesn't need to take from the grid. He has to find out a solution how he will run his energy. So therefore, you have energy which is 24 hours underneath your feet, and you need to find out a way to bring it up and run it. Summer or winter, day or night, it's only about finding the way. Now the question is, why it is not popular in India? It is not popular in India because very simple, people don't want to go through the hard way of learning this. Because geothermal is nothing, this is absolutely not new science. This was first made in 1904, it was established. Before that, the geothermal comes from 400, almost 400 BC during Aristotle's time, because that is how the word came, geo and thermia. Geo is soil, thermia is thermal, which means before Alexander's time, the Greeks knew that there was something, and all over the world in specific zones, you have these geysers. Geysers are nothing but geothermal. So what we need, say for example, we have about how many? We have 10 people on the screen, and everybody is on different locations, and many of us are in, like Mr. Pandey is wearing a coat and Mr. Manish is not wearing a coat, which means Mr. Manish's area is not so cold. That's what I would assume. So which means he would still be requiring cooling, maybe, and Mr. Pandey would be requiring heating. So therefore, you cannot convert by taking the electricity from the grid and going on doing it. You have the soil energy with you. This is free energy for any place. Just you need to tap it and get it and convert it into the temperature that you want. So technology is available since 1940. Actually, the first heat pump was patented in 1940. And come to think of it, we Indians, we want to be so proud of everything that we are the greatest on earth, and we don't even know anything head and tail out of this thing. Nobody in India you will find knows anything about geothermal exchange. When I started in 2011, people used to ostracize me. They used to laugh at me and say that you are an idiot who is trying to do something in India with something called geothermal. But I felt that this one day, you know, our generation, which is the 50s and 60s, we will leave this world and make the world better for the younger generation. They are much smarter than us. They understand that there is something called logic. We don't understand. We follow legacy. We want to follow things which have been done in the way that has been done for hundreds of years. Right or wrong, we don't care. If you want to solve a problem, you have to find out the problem first. If the solution of the problem, nobody knows. nobody denies the fact that our grid is got still 67-68% of the grid is still coal. And we are talking about making our next 20 years or maybe next 10 years, we are going to make our maximum number of buildings in this country.
So these are very interesting points that you have made, and very clearly we are very uneducated about geothermal in India. And the first time I heard about geothermal was about 7-8 years back when I was visiting my alma mater, which is IIT Kanpur. And there I was told that they have put some heating system which is below the ground, and some heat energy, it is somehow cooling the place or making the temperature ambient, both in winters and in summers. It is maintaining a comfortable temperature at very low. All I understood was that it was doing it at very low electricity consumption. I just heard that, and as usual, like typical mindset, I overlooked what was being said. And therefore, it drives me to a very interesting question that I've seen, or at least I know that it has been applied there and probably very successfully. Are there any large-scale applications running in India which are based on geothermal?
Not large scale. I'm doing 3 large scale at the moment, which is 3 airports, which are largely super large. Okay. I'm doing a couple for the Indian Army, which are at very, very high altitude areas, over 50,000-60,000 feet. 30,000 feet. I'm doing a couple of work for a university. If you permit me, I can show you the basics of what a small one that I did 2 months ago in Roorkee, in Syria. I can show you the screen and share and explain to you what basically it is.
So I will rather ask a few questions around that before we sort of...
You want to ask the questions before or after?
Yeah, before, right away. I mean, for example, as a person, I mean, most of us own residences, right? I mean, especially those of us who own residences which are not flats. I'm talking about those people. In those cases, is it economically viable to put up a geothermal this thing from a cooling perspective and a heating perspective?
Let me answer you point blank. What do you consider as economical? First cost or total cost?
Total cost, obviously.
Total cost. How many years do you think you need to check a system? 10 years, 5 years, 7 years?
At least, I mean, every house typically will have a life cycle of 25 to 50 years, right?
Exactly. So, geothermal is the cheapest total cost of ownership.
Even at very low volumes. I mean, say a flat.
Any volume.
That's very interesting to know.
Right. Number one. Number two is, you are building your houses, which are not apartments, can be very easily off-grid.
Can you repeat the last part, what you said? We missed.
Off-grid. Which means the geothermal earth is a battery for you. Okay, so I give you earth, your earth, you take it, store all your energy where you have, put it in that place, and take it whenever you want it, summer, winter, whatever. Take it for summer, take it for winter, take it for day, take it for night, take it for hot water. Free as a byproduct.
Okay. And,
right? And if you look at converting a house, say for example, 3 rooms, 4 rooms, 5 rooms, a dining or whatever, you will see you will be substantially paying a little bit more than your first cost according to a central system. By a central system, I don't mean a window air conditioner. That is not central. Now, you cannot compare an automobile with a bullock cart. That's not fair. So if you are talking about a house, say five rooms, for example, or six areas where you want to do, and you put a system of say 6 1.5 tons air conditioner and say, Mr. Geothermal, can you do the economics? It may not work. But if you look at this economics, which I would say at the moment, economics, and then you come back and talk to me after 10 years, probably you will thank me in the first place.
And will it give cooling equivalent to an air conditioning?
More.
And heating, normal, I mean, it will maintain the temperature 20 to 24 degrees centigrade.
That's not our role. You want what temperature you take.
Okay, so that's you can maintain any temperature you feel.
Any temperature, because I have a small amount It's, well, let me explain you in common language. You have a refrigerator at home.
Mhm.
When did you, apart from opening the refrigerator, when did you look at the refrigerator?
Never. I mean, we
Never.
never.
I don't remember having repaired a refrigerator. Geothermal is exactly the opposite, the inverted refrigerator.
And can it be implemented after a building has been constructed?
You know, if you want to make Taj Mahal again, all you have to do is to break it up and make it.
Sorry?
If you want to make Taj Mahal again, all you have to do is to make it up and make again.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, of course it can be done. But the question is how much and what are the other engineering parameters that we have to see and take a prudent call.
Mhm.
But it is very easily done. I just you know, built this building in Roorkee. These people from CBRI said, let's make it net zero. And then let's make a geothermal. So I said, done. So then they got a little bit, you know, courageous and they said, let's make it net zero. I said, okay, let's try that. Then they said, can we make it off grid? I said, okay, let's also try that. And then we did everything, everything in that. And the building in whole month of October and November had a solar surplus of 36%. Can you ever think of an Indian building doing solar surplus? Forget it. All these IGBC that you listen, they do only 30 to 15% of the building with solar.
Mhm.
Solar is a very low yield product. You know, you are talking about efficiencies of 20% and all that. But think how much of electricity is required to convert from electrical energy to thermal energy for cooling.
Mhm.
Where do you stay, Mr. Manish? Hyderabad.
Yeah, that's right.
Hyderabad is extremely warm. It's hot. And winters, you sometimes definitely need heating also,
Mhm. Yes.
in the nights at least. You know, I work in a country called Iraq. And I have to regularly design temperatures with plus 50 and 0.
Mhm.
You know, it's a nightmare.
Mhm.
It's a nightmare in terms of design.
Mhm.
And these guys, they say, first, when you talk to them, these Iraqis, they will, you know, they know very well how to fight. But if you ask them anything to do with engineering, they get totally, you know, mesmerized.
No,
They
then they
say,
will
okay,
call
okay,
Indians.
we want, huh?
Then they will call Indians.
Yeah. There is 1 lakh Indian moving around the streets of Iraq and you can speak in Hindi.
Mhm.
So many people. So what happens is, in order to understand that your system is basically going to work between 50 degrees and 0 degrees means what is the amount of, you know, the resource that you have. Say if you have to do this in a chiller, the Americans loot them, loot. You know, they almost tell the bloody Iraqis that we put one chiller for your summer, one for your winter, etc. Do whatever, and then after that, you know, they come back and sell them tons and tons of these chemicals to do the cleaning of this scaling.
Mhm.
Because it's a fluid system. And mind you, we are only putting water, no makeup water in geothermal. So you will never open anything for scaling. So next 20 years, you are not going to touch anything.
Yeah.
You might just, you know, maybe clean a filter here, clean a filter there, and if one electronic goes, you will do it. But nothing more than that. And whatever goes into the ground is actually plastic pipes. So you have to know the technology, the technique. But basically, it's all glass and science.
So with this, I will shoot my probably last question to Yogesh. Maybe you can throw us or educate us a little bit about what is happening about manufacturing of solar modules in India, because I think that's one of the very touchy areas. Yeah, Yogesh,
Yeah, sir. Can you repeat your question? No, I think last word.
Yeah. What I was saying was, could you sort of throw some light on what is happening in the solar manufacturing space within India?
So if you're talking about the manufacturing, so India did not manufacture any wafer is still in India. So we are totally dependent on wafer for the China, Vietnam, and South Korea. But the government has taken some initiative like the ALLM, domestic content kind of module, and this kind of initiative. So maybe in upcoming time, the Adani and Reliance has coming to the market, who will be coming to the wafer to module production. But currently, what happening in solar industry in India, we brought the cell and wafers from the other countries like the China, Vietnam, and South Korea. And after the getting the sale, we do the doping of that particular cell with the help of PNN type of solar semiconductor. And from that things, we will manufacture the cell. But we did not have the quality assurance which quality of the cell production they are giving to the India. Because if you're talking about the good quality of the crystalline cell, the purity will become around 99.9999999% of the cell. But India has no such kind of thing. What type of the quality material has given to the cell. And if you see the last couple of years, if you see the degradation rate, so if you're talking about the older module or a newer module, because I have also done the All India survey in 3 times in India in 2014, 16, and 18. And what we will observe in this study, the older module is working well as compared to the newer module. The degradation rate in the newer module is around 7 to 8% as compared to the older module. So this is also the very, very challenging thing, which type of material or which type of quality you are using to the solar module. As the quality concern, the International Electrotechnical Commission, the IC standard is there, like the 61215 or 61464 for the crystalline and thin film technology. And the BIS, like the Bureau of Indian Standard for the quality concern from India, but still there is no such kind of technology, and without the wafer manufacturing, India is not achieving to the proper target in a solar industry.
And any light on so I understand that largely the solar modules are imported from China, right? I mean, onto a large.
Yes.
So given our historical track record where in some older modules where the degradation has been higher than what has been committed by the manufacturer, have Chinese manufacturers actually upheld their warranty and compensated the developer or the owner of the plant with respect to the higher than expected degradation?
There is a 2 things there. Something is the name, the play of the data sheet of the nameplate generally. So suppose that if the module is a 430 watt, so the people has selling them to around 450 watt kind of thing. So when you do the power analysis with the help of IV curve analyzer, so that the time the module will be give around 430 watt peak at an STC condition. So there is a one crucial rule, because the manufacturer has played to the back seat of the seat where all the data will be mentioned there. So the lot of player has playing this game, because the India did not cross-check the module before the installation, because we only depend to the given data, whatever the manufacturer or the company to provide to us. But if in India, before the installation, if India crosses the module like the wattage, the fill factor, and other things, so it will be given to the more and more prominent technology or more and more prominent output from the industry's perspective.
And what about the degradation part, where the degradation, when it has been higher than warranty?
Yeah, so the degradation, generally what's happening, if you're talking about the International Electrotechnical Commission is standard IEC 61215, so that particular standard has stated that your degradation rate will become around 0.6 to 0.7% in a per year. But nowadays, the degradation will become around 1.5 to 2% of the per year on the module. So suppose that if the manufacturer has claiming the module, if you purchasing the 100 watt of module, so the manufacturer giving the claiming in a 10 years the module will be give the 19 watt, and the 20 years the module will be give the to the 20% of the energy of that module. So suppose that if you're taking the 100 watt of module, and if you are using to the 100 watt module in a 10 years, the degradation rate will be come around, the module will be produce around 90 watts. And if you are working the 20 years, so the 100 watt of module has given to the 80 watt of the output of the system. But such type of things is not seen in the market actually. And we will also raises this question to ministry, but still there is no action will be taken from their side actually.
No, what is the ministry can do about this? This is a manufacturer problem, right?
No, but ministry has take the guideline before installing all the module, the IV screener is the must from the module side. So it will be the one chances key we will just see the quality check the initial level, so we did not facing the degradation issue in the later on.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Yogesh and Arijit. And we'll now what we'll do is I'll keep the floor open for question and answers. And I suppose Pragyan will ask
Dr. Pragyan Chakravarti will take up
some of the questions to our esteemed panelists.
I think a lot of questions have already been taken up by panelists, and I do not think there's more scope for further questions to be taken up by them. But of course, if they feel like answering a few questions which they can themselves pose and answer, that can be done. Meanwhile, I would like to take a few of the questions which was already thrown, and perhaps I would be able to put more light on the questions which were already thrown. So, for example, Manish Dada had asked the question that while manufacturing these solar cells, what is the carbon footprint? Now, it's okay that when we generate the electricity through solar panels, it's not creating a carbon footprint. But while manufacturing these, what is the carbon footprint? This is a very pertinent question, but the answer to it lies on a very fundamental understanding that we must have. That is, that carbon as such is not a problem. Carbon in its gaseous form is. So unless carbon becomes a carbon dioxide to make it as a greenhouse gas, it isn't a problem. So while manufacturing these solar cells, we might use carbon, but it is not creating a large-scale greenhouse gas. That is number one. And secondly, even if the greenhouse gases are created, we must remind ourselves that this is a one-time process. So while generating the electricity, we are, of course, not creating the greenhouse gas, but while manufacturing it, it is almost a one-time process that the cells are, the solar cells are getting manufactured. And over a period of time, if you look at it, if you average the greenhouse gases generated in the overall process, that is fractions of what we actually generate through the fossil fuel source. That is one of the answers that I would like to give on this particular thing. And another. Manish Dada, you asked a few more questions. I think
I'm back at you, so that you help us, the audience, understand this a little better. You gave a very good point on manufacturing process. So also I wanted to understand. So manufacturing process is one way by which the carbon footprint is created in some way or the other, and as you
right.
the gas in the gaseous form. What about the electronic waste generated after 25 years?
That's another issue. You see, that's another issue, you see. But while we are talking about clean energy, this doesn't become an issue itself. Now, of course, electronic waste, the issue of it was rightly taken up by, was rightly raised rather by Professor Vinay Pandey in our last episode. So I would like to say that here we can understand that why if in perspective of solar cells, if we talk about, then these solar cells are as such what? As such, it is silicon, and silicon which comes from sand. Now, what we can do is, and what we really do for throwing off this e-waste is that we grind them. We first separate the, say, the plastics, the metals, and the wafers by themselves, and then try to recycle them. For example, recycling these solar wafers would just grinding them and throwing them just like sand, it won't make a difference. And while talking about the plastics associated and the metals, that those can also be separated, segregated, and recycled. So recycling is one of the answers to the e-waste handling problem. And the kind of wastage that is being created by this process of solar cell making and this, though we say that it creates, we think that it creates a lot of e-waste, but actually it doesn't. Earlier, the e-waste that we used to have was different. Like the most of it comes from those big giant computers that we had in our homes. The PC that we talk about, the desktop PCs. Now everything is miniaturizing. The usage of plastics have reduced. So the e-waste which we used to have, say, a decade back, has changed, and the recycling processes have changed. So we will be able to manage the e-waste effectively, perhaps in near future with more technologies to be brought in.
I want to say something on this. Actually, you said that e-waste is not a concern. The government of India estimates that in the next 25 years, 50 million tons of solar waste will be produced. And we as a country don't even have a policy of how we are going to handle it. So I think it is not right to make a statement that it is not going to impact. In 50 years or 25 years, most of us, we are not going to be around. But the calculation clearly shows that it's going to impact the ecology horribly. So I do not agree to your point that this e-waste is not going to be a problem. E-waste or solar waste, whichever way you may call it, it is still a very, very big problem, number one. Number two, when it comes in terms of carbon, you are saying that in gaseous form and things like that. At the end of the day, it's all embodied carbon. So when you look at embodied carbon, as a country, India, we do not even have a data reference point where anybody in this whole country of 140 billion people can say which material has how much carbon as embodied. So I think we are far away from all these informations, and we are talking, our common language, common knowledge is basically googling around. And I think we need to be objective, we need to be honest to what the situation is, and then stand up and say, okay, fine, this is what we have done in the past. We goofed it up. We need to just shut up now and listen to the good things what other people are doing. And believe me, I've spent 28 years in this business. You can't understand, the best English word I learned was bullshit. Believe me, you won't believe the kind of things which we say as Indians. And sometimes when we go abroad, when people say something, we don't know where to, hide. These people are talking so many things, we don't even know which Google Translate to search. 50 million tons of solar waste, and we are saying it's a little problem. 3 years ago, we talked about as if we had a magic band, something called e-vehicles. Today, everything has been junked. You think the panels which Ambani is producing is best for you and me? No way. It's the precursor to his green hydrogen business. You have to understand what goes behind all this. And that is why 20,000 crores of your PLI link scheme has moved to 45,000. That is not for you and me. We and me, we will only do Zoom call and keep talking. These people will play the game and go away. Believe me, it's a much, much bigger story. Much bigger story. When we look at EV, when we look at these games, when we look at Mayuri Auto, there are many things. This country looks about on a lot of political nexus, and believe me, the best business is energy. Best. Anywhere in the world. You think the Americans went all the way to Afghanistan and Iraq to fight a war because they were bothered about them? And they wanted the oil. Finished. That was the energy of the last century. Today, the energy of the last century could be anything. And in my opinion, we should, as Indians, our problems are just not the same as the others, because the buildings that we have built over the years are so pathetic, and this is the largest single point destroyer for our ecology. 40% of our problems are actually in buildings, and the buildings, it's so easy to produce solar because you just put a panel, you can get the solar. The question is not solar, the question in the solar form. Because Mr. Yogesh will support me if you connect the solar to the grid. The grid, Indian grid, as of last year is 729 grams of carbon with 12% offset of renewable. That's the carbon. So which means if you do an exchange between the grid and your house, for example, you will be calculated on 729. If you do it on a utility scale, it is 48. If you do it on a off-grid condition, it is 18. So the moment we exchange with the grid, we are finished again. So we need to relook at all these things. We need to understand why these things are there. And believe me, this is something, everyone in this country has an agenda to fulfill. You think this for 50% of Jamnagar, which Ambani is giving, is because he wants to green India? That is the basic source under the PLI scheme to supply his green hydrogen. And the scale is such that no small-time solar manufacturer, I was listening to the question which Manishri was asking, no manufacturer smaller will be able to even think of all these schemes. It's only at 40,000 crores, 50,000 crores kind of situations. It's not for us. It's only for producing the green hydrogen, and it will be produced in one place or two places. I'm sorry I interjected, but believe me, I have gone through this enough number of times. I'm so sorry. And I'm absolutely sorry in not agreeing to you, but that's right.
No, thanks, Arijit, for your perspective. I think that was very helpful, irrespective, of the fact that some of us may think differently or have a different perspective on that, and these perspectives.
Right. Every perspective is important. But here, from the technical perspective, as I told, that recycling is the answer to it, and we need to focus on recycling technology. It can be recycled. Whatever amount of waste we have, it can be recycled. That is the point. Apart from whatever political or whatever business point of view, those are different things. But as a technocrat, we can think about that. Yes, these wastes can be recycled and recreated, reused. Definitely, it can be. There is no point that we cannot achieve it. Certainly we can.
Completely agree on this. Only one thing I want to interject is, why we are not able to do this, because we don't quantify the problem. Nobody knows what the exact problem is. So
yes.
If you say recycling it, there should be 50 million tons recycled. Now 4 remaining. What happens to the 4 million tons? That is not answered. Now that has a biological magnification of maybe 45 years. When it goes into the soil, it impacts the soil for next 45 years. So somebody in this country must answer this question.
Right. Not just answer, but be prepared for all this. Prepared for the contingencies.
Exactly.
So
we are going to go away. Our children are going to be there, and we don't even have an answer for what we are creating and also for that.
So I think we'll stop here. We will have a hard stop in terms of time, not because the discussion I thought was very, very interesting. I will request our moderator Vinay to Vasudev Mukherjee to the.
Yes, of course. It was quite interesting to hear from both of our experts, and especially the points brought out by Mr. Arijit Ghosh is really vulnerable and very alarming. It's ironically true. In fact, he has shown us the mirror, I must say. Okay, at this point, I would like to welcome our one of the guests, Mr. Vasudev Mukherjee, who is in waiting for a very vital role to be played here of proposing vote of thanks. Before he does that, I will just say a few words about Mr. Vasudev Mukherjee. Mr. Vasudev Mukherjee is an alumnus of St. Columbus School and Delhi University, Delhi. He is at present Assistant Secretary General at ASSOCHAM. Before that, he has been on the coveted positions of Director Aspen Industries India. Also, he was Director Center for Management Development Program and Head of Industrial Research at CII. We are very fortunate to have him here today, and I would like to request him to propose vote of thanks for all our participants and guests at this forum. Over to Mr. Vasudev Mukherjee.
Thank you. It's been a very interesting session, especially coming so close on the heels of Glasgow, where the Prime Minister set the tone and tenor of our renewable energy mandate. And it was good to have a very hearty discussion on this entire topic. So I would like to thank our speakers for being here and for setting this debate. Perhaps this will be like the forerunner for many other programs to come, where we can have a more detailed discussion on the issues involved. Already, I could see a very heated debate, and we'd like to just keep this up, and hopefully, this will lead to some sort of solutions for our country. And so, thank you very much. I also would like to thank the participants for joining us, and I'm sure they will take away some ideas which they can also carry forward in their own way. So once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being with us here at XENA World.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee, for that. We shall now, as usual, play Jaina Anthem.
So can I leave now? Hello.
Audio is not coming. You can stop it. Yeah, you can request Banamali Nepak.
Okay, I think we'll have to forgo this. Well, we could go on and on, but there is always a constraint of time. So I would like to now introduce Professor Banmali Nepak, who is here with us.
I think Vinay Bhai, because we could not run the anthem and even and I see we have got 5 minutes left.
Yes.
We, as an observer, this is a surprise twist, but let
Okay.
us avail the benefit
Yes.
of Prakash Bhai, who has logged in and very patiently he's been hearing, just to throw his observatory
Why not?
remarks.
Why not? Please, Prakash Mohan sir. You have to unmute, sir. You got to unmute, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Rajiv Bhai, for giving me this opportunity. I must say that both the speakers, as well as Dr. Vinay Pandey, and as well as the vote of thanks by Mr. Mukherjee, and also by Mr. Manish Agarwal, who is also from the same alma mater from IIT Kanpur, where I am from. And this has been a very enlightening sessions. Frankly speaking, my background is chemical engineering and followed by banking, and currently I'm having my own consulting, and ESG is one of my prime area of interest, and that's the reason I decided to attend today's session. And it was so right attending this. And frankly speaking, I was not fully aware about the use of geothermal energy even for the household. So it was very enlightening, because in my mind also geothermal was meant to be for very large projects only and not for really for households. So thank you very much. I must say that these two sessions were very, very fruitful. And I will request Rajiv Bhai that this recording should be promoted and published, so that many more people who could not attend today's session, they have an opportunity to listen to these two very, very important presentations today. And I wish all the best to XENA family, and I will be very happy to continue to participate, and also sometime in near future share my thoughts as well on these or some of the other topics of my interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So we have Professor Banmali Nepak with us. He's assistant professor. He was assistant professor at Vigyan Institute of Technology and Science, Desmukhi. Before this, he was a lecturer at Apex Institute of Technology and Management, Bhubaneswar. He is an MTech from NIT Rourkela and BTech from BPUT. We are fortunate to have him here, and as a new start, rather you can say a continuation of initiative started by our Mr. Rajiv Anand. We will be having a word of goodbye from Mr. Nepak in regional language Odia. May I now request Professor Nepak to come online? Yes, please.
Namaskar. एठी समस्त को प्रणाम और आज एते भलो ग्रीन एनर्जी ऊपर समस्त स्पीकर माने किछि किछि कहिथिबेरु बहुत माने एनलाइटिंग हेछि जा जना पड़छि राजीव भाई जो इनिशिएटिव नैचंदी धीरे धीरे माने आगु को बड़ी बड़ी चलीछि आ एटा सबठो भलो कहबाको गले छाड़ियो एमती चली दरकार धीरे धीरे माने अन्य माने केमिति ता द्वारा बढ़ी पारे प्लस जानी पारे एटा होचे हमर लक्ष्य देखा जाऊ आज तो मते लागु नै जे केते ओडिया के अछंती बोली काइना नारू मु जति के देखु सब बाहर ही अछंती एनीवे धन्यवाद समस्त जति स्पीकर प्लस ऑडियंस जो माने भी अछंती आसिक अटेंड करबा आ सुनिबा द आगु केमिते एटा को यूट्यूब किबा अन्य माध्यम रे जतोले प्रसारित हेबो ताले आउरी बहुत भलो भाबरे ग्रीन एनर्जी ऊपर समस्त जानि परबे एटा होची मुख्य उद्देश्य
Thank you Professor Saab. Thank you so much. So this was all. I must thank all the participants and our distinguished guests, the panelists who have come here and shared their so important and vulnerable thoughts on the green energy. I hope we will have this type of sessions in future also. And we would certainly like to hear from Mr. Prakash also, who has been here and he has shared his views at last. So thank you all once again. It was great pleasure having you all here. Thank you so much and goodbye. Jai Hind.